Welcome to the video. My name's Steven. In this video, I'm going to be talking about 12 dating tips that you can apply to business. I'm going to be telling you the tip, telling you how it applies to dating, and then telling you how it applies to business. If you don't know who I am, I make this channel so I can help entrepreneurs, like-minded individuals, and anyone better their lives, better themselves, and become better individuals. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it. First of all, actually, since I mentioned it, the reason why I make this video is because I've had time in my life where I struggled with dating, time in my life where I was pretty decent at dating, and now I'm in a relationship very healthy with a girl that I love, and she's awesome. And so I've taken the stuff that I've learned from all of those situations and then compacted into this video and with business to help you out. So let's go ahead and get into the first tip, and that is, or I guess piece of advice, is there is no such thing as pity. So what do I mean by pity? In relationships and dating, there is this kind of like nice guy or good guy kind of thing where I guess the guy's like a golden retriever and he kind of does anything and everything for this woman and she's not into him, right? The friend zone, if you will. A woman is very rarely going to go on a date with you out of pity, and she's definitely not going home with you out of pity. Nobody's going to feel bad for you, right? No one's going to feel bad for you and do something for you, and that's kind of the point this tip gets across. And when I translate that into business, there is nobody who's going to do business with you because they feel bad or because you're a nice guy and you have a nice company. They're going to do business with you because they need the value from the service that you provide. And if you don't provide enough value, they're not going to buy your service. And the same thing goes in relationships. If you don't provide enough value, if you're not the right kind of man, she's not going to start dating you or go home with you or whatever it is you're looking for. It's just not going to happen. And so that is the first tip. All right. So the second one is that one mistake erases the attaboys. This is specifically speaking to my men out there. I feel like, and this is just my personal opinion from what I've experienced, I feel like men are a little bit more forgiving and they forget about things easier because they're logical thinkers. Where women think more emotionally. And so their emotions get tied into the mistakes you make. And so you could have a million attaboys and you could do such a great job in a relationship, but if you fuck up one time, that fuck up weighs heavier than the attaboys. And that leads into number 3, which is that your mistakes become worse exponentially. So let's talk about how these work in relationships first, right? So you do a great job, you take this girl out to dinner, you get her flowers and she has a good time with you and everything's great. And then you play the wrong song in the car. And I mean, that's just a really simple example, but say, you do something, you hurt her feelings, right? You hurting her feelings erases those attaboys. You've now messed up, okay? In the mind of the woman. This is what I've learned from David Dita in The Way of the Superior Man, and I've seen this happen in my own life, right? One mistake erases the attaboys. You now have to make up for that mistake, right? Also, the mistakes become worse exponentially. So if you start out dating, here's your timeline. And this is the first month, and this is the first year. So this is month 1, month 12. Your first mistake might be right here on the graph in month 1 because you guys just started dating, and it's like, all right, whatever. So what? The second mistake multiplies by 2, right? Or I guess R2 would be here. When your mistakes come up, the rest of the mistakes get brought back, okay? And so then it comes to a point where people will start to make connections with the mistake to you. So if you continue to make the same mistake over and over again, as time goes on and as you continue to make these mistakes, they will weigh heavier because you've made the same mistakes repetitively, but also now I can cognitively see you as the person that makes the mistake, right? So say you always make fun of your girlfriend. At first it's like, okay, whatever, that kind of hurt. The second time it's like, all right, like you're making fun of me a lot. And by the 15th, 20th time you do it, she starts to avoid you because she makes a connection to you that you make fun of her. And so it's very important to understand when you make these mistakes and cut them off early in the relationship, because those mistakes will increase exponentially over time and will ruin the relationship long term. Now, how does this apply to business? It's the same principle, right? If you are working with a client and you do a really good job, and then all of a sudden at the end of the service, they find out that you did something terrible to their roof or to their business or to their ads, and they ended up wasting a lot of money, and there's a mistake that's not repairable or more expensive to repair, right? You now have to make up for that. And it's a lot harder to make up for that after, especially after it being a long period of time, right? If you've made 17 mistakes in the lifetime of working with this business person, it's going to be a lot harder to fix those mistakes, and they're going to end up canceling. So it's very important to try to make as little mistakes as possible and be prepared to adapt and understand where those mistakes happen. Now, obviously, you're going to make mistakes, especially starting out. But that's why when you have that mistake with that client, you take that lesson and you learn it so that next time the same situation occurs, you don't make the same mistake. And that's how you learn within business. Number 4, and I wrote this completely out so that you can see the full extent of this. You don't owe anyone anything unless a written agreement was signed and monetary compensation was exchanged for value. Okay? This is very important, the and here. All right? A written agreement and compensation was exchanged for value. You can do nice things for people, except you don't owe anyone anything. You don't owe that person a date. You don't owe that person a wedding ring. You don't owe that person a life with you. You don't owe that person anything. Okay? And unless these two things happen, you don't owe that person anything. If you feel like they're not the person for you, if you feel like you don't want to go on this date with this person, if you don't want to talk to this person, you don't have to. I think that's one of the biggest things that you should take away from this entire thing. You don't owe anyone anything, even a handshake, okay? Because people can back out of that. Now, obviously, out of respect, if I make an agreement with someone and it doesn't involve these two things, I'm going to hold up my end of that agreement. However, if I decide, you know what, I really don't want to do this anymore, I can back out at any time, all right? Your word is your bond. It's very important, but you should still have it on paper. More importantly, you should get monetary compensation in exchange for value. Now, in a relationship, it's a little bit different, right? This is more on the business side. I'm not saying that like you have to pay your wife or she has to pay you or whatever to be in the relationship, but there is like a marriage, like when you get legally married, right? There's a written agreement that's signed, okay? And so I don't owe anyone and you don't owe anyone anything unless that happens. And I mean, obviously you don't have to get married under the eyes of the government. Like I think under the eyes of God is fair enough, right? But if you're in a relationship and you've been in this relationship for 2-3 years and this person clearly isn't the one, and like you don't have to sit there and think about it, like deep down in your heart that this person is not the one for you, leave that relationship. And the same thing goes in business. Do not work with people that you don't want to work with. It's very simple. Unless you owe them something that's signed on a contract, do not work with them. And the same thing goes in relationships. All right, number 5, whoever cares more about the prospect wins. Actually, this is a little bit less of like a relationship dating thing and just with people in general. If you can show that you care about a person more than they care about themselves, you are going to win whatever it is, right? In business, it's the proposal, but maybe in a relationship, it's like winning the relationship, the winning her heart or whatever, right? Winning her as a girlfriend or whatever it is, right? If you care more about her than she cares about herself, then you will win. Okay, and so it's important when you have a prospect, when you're asking them questions and you're scoping them out before you guys start working together, you ask them important questions and you make sure you understand that if they're struggling in their business or if they're struggling in life, maybe you can help them with your solution to your problem, or maybe it just wouldn't be a good fit at the time, right? Because if I care about my girlfriend and say my girlfriend, it probably just wouldn't be a good idea for us to date anymore. If I care more about her, I will make that decision. If I love and care about her and I see that it's not a good fit for us to be dating each other, I will tell her like, hey, I don't think this will work out anymore. And I'll tell her the reasons why, right? Instead of having myself stuck in a relationship that I don't want to be in, not saying that that's the situation in my relationship currently, but if I care about her more than I care about myself, then I can make sure she makes good decisions to help herself. And same thing goes in business. When you're doing business with someone, you need to make sure that that person is making proper decisions and you're not stealing their last dollar to get your service done that may or may not be lucrative to their life. If this video is helping you out so far, go ahead and click that like button and subscribe. I post videos like this every single day-ish, or like every week or something like that. And check out the rest of my channel. Thank you for watching. Number 6 is to set expectations and meet expectations. In a relationship, there are certain expectations and boundaries and rules that people have for each other. So that way I don't overstep my girlfriend's boundaries, or I don't overstep the girl's boundaries that I'm speaking to, right? You set your expectations and then you meet the expectations. There's certain expectations in a relationship that people are supposed to hold up to. And so it's important for you to meet those expectations, especially if you set them originally, right? So in my current relationship, there is a predicament that we're in that could be better, but it has to do with like distance. Right now, it's kind of like a distance thing. And I told her that I was going to get us to a point where we didn't have to deal with the distance any longer. Okay. I have set that expectation. I'm going to close the distance between our relationship, like physical distance. And then I'm going to meet those expectations because that's what I said I would do. Right. So set expectations, meet expectations. When it comes to business, if I told the business owner, hey, by tomorrow at midnight, I'm going to have these 7 things to you, then by tomorrow at midnight, I need to have those 7 things to the business owner or to whoever I'm doing business with, right? Set expectations, meet expectations. All right, number 7, I learned this one from Alex Hormozy. Book a meeting with a meeting. Now, this applies to business mainly, but I have used this in dating a lot, okay? And this is more for people who aren't in relationships, people who are just like dating around, like looking for someone. Book a meeting with a meeting, right? When you meet someone, if you say you walk up to a girl in a park and you start talking to her and you guys exchange numbers, in that moment, that is when you say, hey, let's get coffee tomorrow at this time, right? And confirm that she will be available at tomorrow at this time. Don't go home and then from the comfort of your bed, text her and say, hey, we should meet up for coffee sometime, because she's not going to text you back. It's the confidence that you have within yourself to move the customer journey face to face, right? Or the journey of the relationship face to face. So if I'm talking to a girl, I would say, let's meet for coffee at this time. And after we meet for coffee, I'd say, hey, maybe we can go get burgers next week, or whatever the case is, right? Book a meeting with a meeting, but don't go back home and text her because she's not going to answer. Same thing goes in business. Someone says, hey man, look, I just can't do it right now. I can't afford it at this moment. I'll give you a call in 6 weeks. Okay, do you have your calendar pulled up? Let's go ahead and book a meeting for next week. Can you do next week, or can you do a week from now, 2 weeks from now? And that way you have made sure and confirmed that that person will show back up. And if they can't, at least it's in the calendar, and at least you can reach back out to them and change the date if that's the case. But book a meeting with meeting. Very important. Number 8, know when to cut ties. Sometimes you just know. Talked about it earlier in the video with one of these steps, this one right here. Know when it's time. All right. Sometimes it's just like we've been together for too long. Like I don't like your parents. Your breath stinks, and that's okay. Like it's better for you to go find someone else who's better for you than to sit here with me, and vice versa, right? So in relationships, obviously it's like you've tried to work it out, you've tried to make it happen, and it just won't happen. And so then at some point, it's just time to break up. It's time to move on. That's how life works. There's seasons, okay? And sometimes you have a season with a person, and it's a great time, and look back on that season and remember that season for how great it was and how much time you had with each other. But you're moving into a new season. It's time to cut that person. And the same thing goes in business, right? Sometimes it's good you don't work with your client anymore. Sometimes it's a good idea if you leave them alone. It would be better for you in the future if you didn't sit there and hound that person for days and days and days. Hey, I gave you an estimate. When can I come back? When can I come back? Are you still interested? Do you care? Like people get overwhelmed with that stuff. And I guess the other way you can take this in relationships too is when you're approaching someone. And I mean, if you take a girl to dinner 7 times and you met her family and you've been over to her house and you've called her every night and you text her every day, she's been kind of off, like giving you like half-ass answers and not really caring about you, and she's talking to other guys, and like cut her off, man. Like it's time to move on. You got other stuff to do. And I think the rest of these are going to kind of go a bit more in deep with this. All right, number 9, if it feels weird, don't do it. If you can kind of get this sign from the beginning that this person just clearly wouldn't be a good fit for you, don't pursue it. Remember, you don't owe anyone anything. Okay, if you're talking to a prospect on the phone and that prospect starts telling you about their past and some of the shady things they've done with other people in business. And if you don't believe me, that has happened to me before. I've had people tell me about shady things they've done. If their attitude is very, different than yours, and you just don't seem like you guys would be a good fit together, don't do the job. Like, just don't do it. Or if you work in a company and say like you work in a car company and you're a sales guy and you're talking to someone and your personalities clash, just say, hey man, I'll be right back. I'm actually going to go get someone else who would know a little bit more about your circumstance. And then go grab another sales guy and then have him talk to that person, right? Have that guy speak to another person in your company, because maybe they would have a better chance at closing than you would. Because I personally, and I think a lot of people, cannot do business well with someone that they clash with. And the same thing goes in relationships. If you clash with someone, if you're always arguing, you probably shouldn't be together. You probably shouldn't have started the relationship in the first place. And again, just like in number 8, All right, number 10, be careful about giving value. Right? So it's very important in a business relationship to give people value. You always want to give out, free handouts and lead magnets and things of that sort to get people to buy your service, right? And to give, then ask, make your service so good that people refuse to say no. And that's very important. But let's also look at the flip side of that. There are tangible things you can give people without putting a bunch of effort in. For example, this video right here, I can make this video and then I can send it to 50 people and I can send it to people for the rest of my life because I'll always have this video made and it'll take me 2 seconds to send this video. And it could be valuable. It could help somebody out, right? But if I'm giving this person a bunch of callbacks and I'm doing a bunch of free work for them, eventually they're going to step all over me, okay? I've seen this happen before in my own business as well as with other people. If you give someone enough of a leeway, they're going to step all over you, right? And so you need to understand the person that you're giving free value to, right? What kind of person is this? Have a good understanding, right? You can provide free value, and that's great. However, just make sure that this person is not going to continue stepping on you and that they're going to pay you at some point, right? And so in business, this is specifically when you start doing part of your service that takes you multiple hours to complete without getting anything in return. The same thing goes in life. When you're always there for someone, you're giving them attention, you're giving them affection, you're doing things for them. Like you're there on moving day and you're there when their boyfriend breaks up with them, or you're there when, like, you're always there, but they're never there for you. It's time to cut that relationship. Okay, so be careful who you're giving value to. If you continue to give value to this person in business and they don't do anything back and they don't reciprocate, then it's time to cut them off. Number 11, do not rely on the prospect. Okay, I have fallen for this trap so many times. And I actually talked about this in my last business tip video. And if you want to see that, it's somewhere on my channel. The basic saying is, don't get your panties wet until the big guy's out. And I really like that saying. And it's basically like, you haven't closed the job until the invoice is paid, right? You haven't gotten the girl until you guys have confirmed that you're dating, right? Or gone out on that dinner or whatever your plan was, right? Don't rely on that person all the time. And rely also means thinking too. Like, don't think about them all the time. If you're thinking about the prospect, you're sitting there like, man, when this guy pays this invoice, I'm gonna have all this money and I'm gonna go buy a nice car and I'm gonna go buy a nice house and all this stuff. And this deal is the biggest deal I've ever done. And if it closes, man, it's gonna be great. Because when you start to rely and think about the prospect all the time, you stop doing the other things that are important, right? Because you're like, well, I don't have to make these cold calls and I don't have to reach out to these customers because when I close this deal, like, I'm going to be set, right? And what ends up happening is you get let down exponentially, right? And so the same thing goes in relationships. If you have introduced this girl to your parents and you have taken her on dates and you have, or even let's just say, and I've been there too, you're the nice guy and you can't really tell, you think that, she actually, like, her fish died and her grandpa wants to hang out with her and he's in town and she's just busy and has a lot of homework to do, and that's why she can't hang out with you. She keeps giving you all these reasons as to why she can't do it. The prospect keeps opening your emails but not responding. It's time to cut them off. It's time to stop relying on them, right? So what happens is you start to think about that person a lot, and I've been there where it's like you're in this friend zone situation where you're thinking about this girl and, oh, what's she doing? And, like, where is she and how's, like, I wonder how her day's going and why isn't she texting me? If this is happening to you, it is important to fill your time with other shit. If you feel yourself relying on a prospect, man, if this prospect closes, I'll have all this money and then I can put that in advertising, I can blow up my business. It's time to get back to work, okay? Fill your time with other things. Do not fill your time with relying on the prospect or the girl or thinking about that person and wondering when they're going to text you and all this stuff, because none of that is important at the end of the day. It's your own life. Do not let that other person control you. And the last one, bonus one that I added at the end, humans sniff out intention. They're very, very good at sniffing out intention, okay? If you walk up to a girl in a bar and your intention is to sleep with her and take her home, she is going to tell within the first 3 or 4 seconds of speaking to her. Likewise, in business, if you are approaching someone and trying to get them to sell and get them to buy your product, they're going to know within the first few seconds. Okay? It's very important that you just want to speak to them. You want to have conversation. If your intention is to get money out of this person or go home with this person or whatever the case is, they're going to be able to tell and they're not going to want to hang out with you or talk to you, right? So this is very important. I mean, I've seen this in my own life. I recently was approached by a salesman for, I'm not going to really talk it much into it, but he was texting me, and the way he was texting me before the call, I thought we were just hanging out. I thought we were just buddies. He texted me, and the way he texted me was such a, are you going to be able to make it to this call? I'm so excited to see you. Like, is this, I don't, just the way he was texting me, it just felt like he was trying to sell me something. And so I was off put and I just didn't show up to the thing. Okay. And it's just because I could smell his intention beforehand. Your intention should always be to meet new people and to make connections. Okay. As soon as your intention is to sell everyone you talk to and to, take that girl home, she's going to see, she's going to realize, she's going to sniff it out, and she's not going to want to go home with you. That is the video. And I hope that helped you out. If it helped you in your relationships and or business, let me know in the comments below, or give any other tips that you might have about business and relationships in the comments, because I would love to read them and maybe even make a video on them. Thank you for watching. I hope this helps you out. Bye.